Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. I assume that everybody here has not completed their training, and that's why they're here. I hope so. So we're going to talk about our orientation training that we are sort of requiring that all councillors, mayors, deputy mayors, town clerks, town managers have to take. So this is a sort of a long process. It's going to take a year to get everybody done. And the reason why we have this is because the Municipal Code of Conduct Act came into place on September 1st, which required all the municipalities to sort of have this training in order, because we want to make sure that everybody has the same level of knowledge and skills to the table so that we understand where the conversations need to go. Okay. So I kind of like to talk about what the legislation actually says, because it sets the tone for you to understand what your rules are, right? What the public wants from you to be accountable for. So under our legislation, under Section 21, it talks about that you have to have training in roles and responsibilities, meetings and procedures, council budgets and financial management, and access to information and privacy of information. And of course, the little caveat at the end, it says that there are other things that could be prescribed in the regulations. So what does the regulation say? So the regulations talk about that. An additional one that came to our mind was conflict of interest. So there are 5 modules that all the councillors have to take. So just for curiosity here, how many people have completed the ATIP? Just for a show of hands. Okay, all right. Now, how many people have done the full day modules 1 to 4? Okay, now keep your hands up if you've done both. Hey, that's awesome. All right, so a few people here left to do. And so I think we've had approximately 1,700 councillors right across. And that's a sort of a give and take, because there's always some resignations and always some new people coming in. So there's going to be a continuing battle of making sure that those individuals are trained. So for this year, all the councillors and the senior officials have 1 year to complete the training, right? So September 1st of this year, if you don't have it, then there's consequences that you cannot act on council. So therefore, you can't make any decisions on council. If a new councillor is sworn in after September the 1st, well, then they've got 60 days to take that training, okay? The chief administrative officer under our act, the town manager, also has 60 days or has to complete it within September the 1st. Now, this act does actually only refer to the town manager or CAO. It does not actually refer to the town clerk, but we want the town clerks to take this training. We're not turning anybody down who takes the training, whether it's a department head or maintenance person or town clerk or town manager. It's all good to us. So one of the good things, a bit of sort of future sight for us, was that the minister has the ability to extend that training period for councillors, right? Knowing that it might not be realistic to get somebody trained in a particular period of time. Maybe there's a health reason, or they're out of the province on a travel or whatnot. So the similarity here is for the councillors or the chief administrative officer, they cannot function if they do not have the training. So there are some councillors out there who have told us that they're not going to take the training. And on September the 1st, you will not be able to exercise your power. Hopefully nobody here is going to do that. All right, so Section 206, it talks about the Municipalities Act. It talks about the consequence of you not completing the training. So basically it says here that if you cannot conduct your meetings, can't go to a meeting because you haven't completed the training, well, after 3 months of missing 3 consecutive meetings, your seat is automatically vacated. So that's the inherent responsibility in the act that will vacate your seat if you do not complete the training. All right, so kind of more about what we've done and what you've done. So we've completed 11 code of conduct, voluntary information sessions. So that's Jacob Kimball down there somewhere. He's done that pretty much all on his own. So he's done an amazing job for that. So that's fantastic. 39 mandatory orientation sessions across 17 locations plus virtual. So which means we've got boots on the ground. We're going out to your communities. We're sitting down with you, hoping that we have great numbers for that. The department is committed to 10 additional virtual sessions, so 5 ATIP and 5 modules 1 to 4 between now and September, and maybe anywhere from 10 to 15 in-person sessions between now and September. So there's going to be lots of opportunity for the remaining councillors and staff to get trained. So in terms of the mayors, deputy mayors, and councillors, in terms of who's taking the training, so the code of conduct, 243 of these individuals have taken our code of conduct in voluntary sessions. So that's a really good turnout. They didn't have to take that, so that's great. So the access to information, right now, our numbers are suggesting 895, or about 53%. So we're halfway there. Likely there's some additional numbers that people have taken some training through the ATIP office that we're going to get recorded there as well. So we got some more room to go there. So the roles and responsibilities, this is the full day course with conflict, sort of code of conduct meetings or context of meetings, conflict of interest. We're about 1,019 people. So that's really, really good, about 60% or so. So we've got lots of time to get to everybody else in the system. In terms of the senior staff and the other municipal officials that we have, because we haven't turned anybody down, so there has been a wide gamut of sort of different people that have taken part. So this session here was for voluntary for the CAOs or town clerks. We had 276 people who took this information sessions. So overall, about 550 or so. The access to information, about 328 senior staff took those, and municipal officials took that training session. And the roles and responsibilities, conduct of meetings, 333. So we're doing really good in terms of our numbers for that. Still have a little bit more to go, but we're on par to sort of meet our our deadline, which is your deadline. So for our training sessions that we haven't posted our in-person sessions yet. Stay tuned, that will be on our website that we have out there for our training. But right now, this is our training schedule that we have for the virtual sessions, okay? When we're attending the virtual sessions, it'd be great if we were not on the treadmills or things like that when we're watching the show, because it's really important that you're engaged. We encourage you to have your camera on, to ask us questions, because we want to answer your questions. Okay, so all of our regional sessions or in-person and virtual sessions are free. There's no cost to the municipalities to do this. You can do this at your leisure with us, in a virtual environment or in person. There are other training courses that we do provide from time to time. This year, not as much, simply because we focus so much of our effort on the modules from 1 to 5 in the code of conduct. So other ones that we have done in the past and people are asking for are cash handling, the election training, financial evaluations, the LSD training that we do for the LSDs, the budget training for agendas and minute taking and social media presentations. So that kind of covers the training side. We can answer some questions after on that. We're going to get into our 10 tips for being a good councillor. Now, last night we had our team in my hotel room, and I had drafted a number of different our list, right? And we sat down as a group and we sort of talked about it, and we put out there what we really think our top 10 should be. Likely, a lot of those are not going to be on this list, right? Those are a list for later on tonight when we can have a conversation to sort of see what that kind of list may actually differ. But for this particular case, it's sort of meant to give you a bit of guidance, a bit of support on what we see from the phone calls, the issues that we see that you're facing, the struggles that you're facing, try to give you some sort of tips to sort of handle those things. So the legislation is legal authority and the councillor handbook is your guide, right? So what the legislation is always going to trump what we tell you, is always going to trump what's in your councillor handbook. They may put you in the right place, in the right direction, but when we're talking to you, we are opening up our legislation. We're going right to the section where we think it's applicable, and we're telling you about that particular piece of information. So we want you to do the same thing before you call us. We want you to be informed because then it's going to make for a better and easier conversation. So your rules of procedure, right? I know we've been talking about your rules of procedure right across all of our training sessions. It is embedded in every way we say things. But I really hope that everybody is taking the opportunity to review your rules of procedure frequently. If you have a council meeting that's happening and it's happening, in a good place, that's great. But you need to be prepared for those challenging times, and how are you going to handle those challenging circumstances? Okay. So we all have our rules of procedure, yes? Is there anybody that doesn't? Okay. If you don't, come talk to us after, and we're going to help you out with that. Number 3, there are 3 sides to every story. This is a joke I had. Nobody likes it, but this is number 3, and there are 3 sides. But there are 3 sides to every story. We get a call from a resident. We get a call from the town. We get a call from somebody else, and everybody's got a different perspective of what's going on, right? And somewhere in the middle lies the truth, right? And our job is to help you figure that out together, and so that you do it in a way that you're communicating to your residents, and they feel, well, that they've been incorporated into that conversation. Sometimes we're going to ask the residents who call, can we have permission from them to engage the town on their behalf? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. So know your roles and responsibilities. So, really a councillor, a deputy mayor, a mayor, their abilities are the same. Their ability to make decisions are the same, right? And so there are some councils out there that struggle with this, that certain people may be pushing a conversation in a different direction more frequently. I want to make sure that everybody knows that every vote around that circle is an equal vote, and it's an equal part of the decision-making process, okay? And when you're having that discussion around that table about those motions or those resolutions that are being discussed, it should be that person's time to talk about that issue and the next person's time to talk about that issue. It is not the discussion between the chairperson and that person to be a back and forth. It is a communication between all parties, okay? Motions can only be decided at a public meeting. So motions decided via email do not count. They have to be made in front of a public environment. Whether somebody shows up or they don't show up, it is meant for the public, okay? There's no I in team, it's true, right? You are a council of 5 or 7 or 9, or maybe you're short staffed and you're down a few, but you need to depend on your town staff to give you the advice to make the decisions. They take the direction from you and they pass that direction on to the community itself. So who's the boss? Right? It's not Tony Danza, right? It is the council as a whole, right? It's not the deputy mayor or the mayor. The community, the council makes the decisions, okay? And it was mentioned earlier, one of the sessions earlier, that the town clerks, town staff, they take a lot of heat from the public. And when we talk to them, we want to let them know is that, when we talk to the residents in the community, we remind them that they are taking direction from the council. And sometimes they need more information and more direction to bring back to the residents so that they're informed. So don't take a code of conduct complaint personally. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, there's legitimate complaints out there and these things are going to happen, but people are going to make complaints and you're going to have to deal with them. It is going to be a process, whether there's any validity to it or not. Follow the process, do it right, know that some of this information could very well be public, and be accountable for the decision-making process, okay? Be a good neighbor. So when we're talking about being a good neighbor, chances are we're talking about conflict of interest. We want you as a councillor to say, hey, you might be in conflict of interest, right? We want to give you that heads up so that you don't go to a public meeting and make a decision that you might end up regretting, right? We want you to have that safe place to have that conversation, because it's easier to have it now than it is to have it through a conflict of interest complaint process. And the great news is, if you talk about conflict of interest and you ask the council if you're in conflict of interest and they say you're not, well, there's no penalty associated with you for that. Maybe you have to go back and rescind the decision, but you as a councillor are safe because you had asked for direction. All right, does council need a timeout? Yeah, often they do, many of you do. And so what you can do about that is, if you're finding that the relations within your own council are struggling, or with your own staff, what can you do to sort of re-engage your group, to rebuild the energy, right? There's one community that was having some problems, and I suggested that they, as a council, go out and make a fire, right? And so they went out, they had a fire, somebody cut up the wood, somebody cooked the beans, somebody cleaned up the beans that they spilled, and they had a great time, right? But they were struggling before that time. 2 or 3 days later, they picked up the phone, they gave me a call, they said, best thing that we ever did, right? There's nobody around, there's no decisions, we were just working on the fire, right? And so that's a sort of a good idea to sort of say, if things are not working out, find a way to rebuild, find a team building exercise that will work for you. And if you're in a public environment, there's many different ways to deal with the rising issue. Sometimes you take a recess, right? You break out into a privileged meeting, you have a conversation, you deal with it, and then you come back in and you decide on whatever needs to be decided on or defer. And that's my, pre-nighttime top 10 list, but we can definitely have a sort of discussion about other things that you think would be in there. I know that the minister was here, she is here. She would say that you never go to a council meeting if you're hungry, right? So you'd be hangry, so don't be at that. And that's it for me in terms of my information. I don't know if we're gonna do questions and answers now or after, okay. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much, Christopher. Chris and I have worked together within the bureaucracy a couple of times, Department of Fishery and Aquaculture, and of course now under Municipal and Provincial Affairs. And I've got to say thank you, Chris, for what you're doing. You've certainly added greatly to the department, and I really value the relationship that you and I have because that will benefit all of you moving forward as well. My task this afternoon is much shorter than the other two presenters, and that's lucky for you because you don't want to hear me talking all day. But I'm going to give you a quick update on the Municipal Leadership Essentials course and the work we're doing to satisfy the provincial requirements under the Code of Conduct and the mandatory orientation. Many of you are familiar with our partnership with the College of the North Atlantic. So Judy's with us today as well to talk about what they can do for you. But I really feel like we have the true trifecta of municipal training here on the stage today. We've got our provincial government, your association, MNL, and of course our partners at College of the North Atlantic. So if you can't get it through us, there's probably a good chance you're not going to be able to get that training. But biggest thing for MNL is that we launched our Municipal Leadership Essentials training course just last year, and we've had some great success. This program is delivered by the College of the North Atlantic, and it's provided virtually. It's a 10-week course. A significant portion includes a study on your own readings, and of course, similar to the provincial government training, it does utilize the council handbook as the guide. We did launch it last year. We've had approximately 40 individuals who have gone through this course. Unfortunately, this course was developed before the mandatory training came into effect. But that's fine. We are going through the process now of having, we'll soon be applying to the department. We're working with the college to update our current program to have it certified as a part of the mandatory training requirements. We do anticipate that will be completed in a couple of months. If there's anyone in the room who's already gone through the MLE course, and you've already done very similar modules to what's been rolled out by the provincial government now, not to worry. We will offer a virtual session to get you up to speed if there's anything missing out of our current iteration, and that will be available to you for free because you would have paid for the previous course months ago. Those individuals who have completed the course have given us excellent feedback. We're very, very appreciative of that. Our programs, like everything at MNL, continue to grow, and we continue to tweak as needed. We have had excellent feedback about our instructors. We had Deputy Mayor Susan Fowler, who taught the first class, and Chris Adams, who was our Workplace Integrated Learning Coordinator and former councillor in Cupids, taught the second class. So we're very, very happy to see that people are coming away from that with value. It does give you a direct opportunity on a weekly basis over 10 weeks to converse and socialize online with like-minded individuals. And we've had individuals from small, medium, and large municipalities. And of course, we are making a significant effort to have members of our board trained as well. And our president, Amy Cody, was one of the first people that went through the program. So as we move forward, recognizing that there are numerous deadlines that are approaching, as Chris has noted, we are going to be developing the updated course. But in addition to that, we have formed a partnership with someone that you all know, Sandy Hounsel. Sandy was gracious enough to agree to work with MNL on the delivery of this training. In fact, on Monday and Tuesday of this week, as a pre-symposium opportunity, we hosted approximately 20 to 25 people who satisfied the Code of Conduct requirements, as well as all 5 modules. And I think, Sandy, you will agree that we had an excellent session, some really great discussion, and we certainly found and saw from the registrants and participants why this training is so important. The first step is to acknowledge that we all can learn, right? We're not perfect. We will always learn something new, no matter what session we go into, what course we participate in. That was exactly the case with the training on Monday and Tuesday. We had a number of individuals that have been on council, I think one of them over 20 years. And she had indicated that she still learned something from that session. So kudos to you, Sandy. Thank you very much for working with us. Obviously, we respect your work very much. And I know the individuals in the class respected the fact that you were very open and helpful in all aspects of their training those 2 days. The next steps for us, specific to the Code of Conduct, ATIP, and roles and responsibility, we're not done with Sandy. Sandy is not done with us. So over the next couple of weeks, we are going to issue some expressions of interest to provide some complimentary sessions to what the department is offering. Our sessions will be in person. We may consider a virtual. We will likely go out to 4 or 5 regions across the province between now and September, and we will work to get as many of you up to scratch as possible. Those in-person training sessions, of course, we're going to encourage regional participation. We want to see communities from various peninsulas come together. And of course, this speaks to the goal of MNL, which is to ensure that there's collaboration and working together and learning from one another, which we've seen in the Municipal Leadership Essentials course, but we're also seeing, going to see now through this new training. I want to thank everyone that's had a role in the development of our training program, the current training program that's offered. Our objective in all of this is to provide complementary training to what the provincial government is offering. I will say, as a former councillor myself of 12 years, I did sit through many of the sessions that were offered by the provincial government. They were very, very helpful. And I'll also say, because the next presenter is going to talk about College of North Atlantic, I also am a graduate of the College of the North Atlantic, and the programs they offer are fantastic too. So I said it in jest a moment ago that this is the trifecta, but there is no doubt that the opportunities that exist for you now have expanded significantly in the past 5 or 6 years, and even from before the pandemic. But I think there is a wonderful grouping of opportunities out there for you to become the best possible councillor, mayor, deputy mayor, or administrator that you can. And as we grow and learn together, that will just make our communities better places to live. And that's what it's all about. That's why we're here this weekend. So, of course, moving forward, if there's any questions for MNL about training, or you want to talk about additional training opportunities for your municipality, feel free to reach out to me. You know, I'm accessible and available anytime. We are working through a strategic plan at MNL. A portion of that will be to identify what types of training, new training, that we will develop and deliver. One in particular that we're certainly going to explore is providing some additional safety related training. That's something we've heard from all of you, that there is a gap, and we feel that we may be able to fill certainly a portion of that gap, if not all of it. So thank you very much. I strongly encourage you to get out and register for the training sessions that we'll be doing with Sandy. You will get an email with an expression of interest in a couple of days, but also once Judy and I get our work done on getting the CNA course certified, we will do our best to offer 2 sessions at 25 registrants maximum for that 10-week course, late summer and early fall. So register early. They will fill up very, very fast. And if you have any questions, of course, I'll be happy to answer now shortly too. Thank you very much. So Judy, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time on the agenda today. I'd like to thank Brad and team for the opportunity to provide an overview of who customized and continuous learning is at College of North Atlantic, what we do, and to explore ideas on how CNA can benefit your community and to contribute to framing our future of our municipalities together. Let's see what we have here now. I have no luck with technical. We had a story in the past where my presentation completely didn't work. That's not today. Wonderful. Simply put, CCL's role in workforce development is to identify and deliver relevant training that links students to employment opportunities and encourage lifelong learning. That's a big mouthful. Linking people to employment and encouraging lifelong opportunities. Some of the ways we do this, we create programs that bridge students to the college that wouldn't have had opportunities for post-secondary education. We provide entry-level certifications. So we deliver programming that lands students directly into high-paying jobs. We upskill when you're in a progressive position so that you can avail of opportunities within your job. But mostly we encourage lifelong learning throughout your professional and your personal lives. That can be through micro-credentials, other types of professional development, and personal and general interest type courses. So what is customized and continuous learning? You'll hear me refer to it as CCL. We love our acronyms, so keep this one in mind. When we're talking about customized, we're talking about customized content, a customized location, customized schedule, and a customized delivery method. If it makes sense for us to deliver your training in a parking lot and it's safe, we'll do it. If it makes sense to deliver your training at 7 o'clock at night, we'll do it, whatever you need. When we talk about continuous, it really is lifelong learning, laddering skills and interests on a personal and professional level. In order to maintain and remain relevant and to become and stay relevant and progressive, you have to embrace and drive change. Change is the only constant. We saw that all through the pandemic, I'm sure. So it demonstrated to us how important it is to be agile and flexible because our landscape simply has changed. Our province has changed, our industries have changed, our students have changed, and the needs of our community have changed. So we have to change with it. To address these changes, CCL plans and prioritizes its work to meet the needs of a very diverse group of stakeholders. So at the center of everything we do, meeting the needs of our students is our #1 priority. Doesn't matter if that student is 17 years old or 87 years old. Everyone has a different set of needs, and the college is very diverse in addressing those needs. Our students are looking for the shortest path to employment, and you can do that sometimes through something as a one-day traffic control certificate, for example, can land you a very decent job. They're looking for an interesting and in-demand career. They're keeping existing certifications current. They're growing skills to become more proficient at work, and they're exploring their personal interests. Our communities is another one of our very important stakeholders. Our communities work with us to address the training needs of their towns and their citizens with a regional focus. What works and what's required on the Avalon is very different than what is required in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and what's required in much, much smaller communities. One example of our work with community stakeholders is our partnership with the Nunavut government for the ECE needs in the community of Nain. CCL partnered with federal funders and the Nunavut government to develop and deliver an ECE program in the community. So the training was delivered within the community at the existing daycare. The audience was current ECE workers who didn't have their level 1 certification and needed that certification to keep the daycare open. For the community, there were several wins. We created a customized schedule that we could work with within the daycare. The training was scheduled around cultural holidays. We recognized that these group of students had home responsibilities and children and care for their elders. So the schedule was created to meet those needs. And in community meant that the students could stay there and take care of all those responsibilities and maintain their families and their homes. So we're very, very interested in learning about what you want to see in your community. If you have a need for training, if you have an idea, we never know what you're going to get. When we get that knock on the door, it could be underwater basket weaving, underwater welding, it could be anything. We love it. Gets the heart going, doesn't it, Steve? Our business development officer, Steve, is here. Our campuses are open for business and we want to meet you. We want to learn what you want to see in your community. We are your community college. And industry depends on CNA as well to train a skilled workforce so they may run their operations and grow. We find students, we train them, we upskill them, we keep them current, and we prepare them for future opportunities. An example of that is working with the mining industry. We recognized that the mining industry was growing and it didn't have enough workers to meet the needs. So we worked with government to secure some funding. And as a result of that funding, we're adding 6 or 7 new programs to our list of mining programs so that we can be current in industry and we can get those jobs for our residents. So with the goal to increase participation in the workforce and to grow the province's economy, governments look to us to provide the workforce needed to grow and sustain industry through technical training, through getting more people and accessibility, and for people that wouldn't normally have access to the college, whether it's physical access, whether it's academic access, we can build those paths for your community. A really good example of this is work that we had done with the Cape Friels Development Association. There was a downturn in the industry in Alberta and a group of people were coming back and they had Alberta certifications. So we worked with the executive director there and they told us about the problem they were having. So we created a 5-week program that included 3 weeks of safety certifications, a week of introduction to computers, and a week of job search skills. Within 5 weeks, their certifications were current. They had the ability to keep their resumes current, and then to go out and look for jobs. We did that within the community. It was fantastic. It was a very successful program. And that training was actually delivered in the community of Pound Cove. So at a glance, we're busy and we love it. This is for the academic year 2021 to 22. We had 7,000 students come through our department. Those 7,000 students took place in over 12,000 course registrations for almost 200,000 contact hours. And through that, there was 2,200 courses delivered. So we love what we do. The more knocks on the door, the happier we are. So we feel we're responsible to contribute to the lifelong learning opportunities for your communities. So here I get to brag a little bit because I think we have a team of rock stars at College of North Atlantic. So this is the group that is behind everything that happens. When you knock on our door, or you have a need, or you have an idea, you're meeting with College of North Atlantic CCL's team, but you have the force of the college behind you. You have all of the expertise in marketing. You have all of the instructional expertise. You have all of the quality controls things. So if you come and say, you know, I think we should do a knitting course, let's do it. And you have all of the college behind you across the 17 locations, across all of our departments. So we have award-winning faculty. We are also, we ourselves are trained in Lean, because we want to get that request turned around and get people trained as quickly as possible. So we are a lean organization. So really the question I want to ask you all, or have you think about, is how can we work together? So reach out to your local campus with any ideas, questions, thoughts, what you want to see. You would not believe some of the ideas we received. We love it. We want to hear those ideas. We have a team of business development professionals located across the province in our 17 campuses. And we will work with your team to develop training ideas, source possible funding, develop the logistics to deliver that training. Again, anywhere, anytime, whatever content you need. And just an example on the content for anyone who's not familiar with that, we have all of our existing courses on our College of the North Atlantic shelf, we'll call it. So if you're interested in, say, welding, but your group only wants just a little touch of welding, or they need to touch a couple of areas of that, we will go to what's existing. We don't start with a blank page. We'll pull out those pieces that you need. We'll run it by you, and then we'll help you go find some funding for it. We have a couple of different funding models as well. So when I say customized, it really is, let's explore together and find out what's going to meet your needs. And remember, community events at your local college, we are your community college, and we look forward to working with you. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, please reach out. Please reach out to your local campus. That information will come to us, and we can also be found on the website. Our list of business development officers are located, again, in most of our campuses. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brad, Christopher, and Judy, for your presentation. I got one question for Christopher, if you don't mind. I'm going to, on his 10 tips for council, number 5, he mentioned motions can only be decided on at a public meeting. I just want to know what happens during COVID and Zoom meetings, and what happened with our motions.
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously, you know, COVID sort of pushed a lot of people into a virtual sort of environment. And of course, those virtual decisions were made, and if they were open to the public, they were considered to be a, you know, binding decision, right? So whether it be a virtual meeting or a telephone mechanism for people to sort of log in and hear what's happening, that's really the main requirement, is that the councillors can be heard and they have a right to speak, and that the audience has the ability to hear the decisions that were made.
So it's all legitimate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're under Section 24 of the Act, talks about the meetings, and it talks about the ability to avail of electronic meetings.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to move on into our next preliminary session in a few minutes. So please stay around. Thank you very much, everybody, for paying attention. Take care and stay around.
Is there, sorry, before we stand up, is there any other questions there that anybody has? Feel free to come to the microphone. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Gavin Will, Portrait with Philip St. Phillips, and I just wanted to speak briefly about our experience with the municipal code of conduct, and sort of a tale of be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. It's the code of conduct is a very necessary piece of legislation and certainly it reads exceptionally well. It's a little less straightforward in its implementation, and we learned that the hard way over the last few months. Basically, the issue that we had was getting contradictory advice. Now, this is a new piece of legislation, and I totally understand why these things happen with new pieces of legislation. It's bad enough with older legislation, I'm sure. But what we found is that we weren't, when it came to the procedure, the code of conduct kind of assumes that everybody's working. Everybody, I suppose, is kind of working together, and even those who have been accused of breaching the code of conduct will kind of recognize that they've done this, and are eager to make restitution and to apologize and all that. So that's my kind of feeling of where about the code of conduct. What it's not so great at is dealing with the situation where that's not the case, and we found that if the councillor is not participating in the process, doesn't, because the way it works for those who remember is that somebody makes a complaint, it's the town staff will basically register the complaint, ask for a response from the person being accused of breaching the act, the code of conduct, and if everybody's happy, and it can stop right there. If it needs to go further, then an investigator is hired. And in our particular case, the councillor had no intention of participating in any of this. And then when it came to the meeting of council, where we had to decide whether the councillor was in breach of the code of conduct, and if so, what penalties we were going to impose upon him, then he wanted to participate. And we were given contradictory advice, and we had to do a redo just last month, actually, and it wasn't a lot of fun for anybody. And it was so I would suggest that the department work with municipalities, learn from our experience and from the experience of others to kind of to rework some of the rules of procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Really great questions, and it's a really important story that we're all learning together, right? This is something that's new, right? And sometimes we have the things that happen that are not what we expected to happen at that point in time, right? And you're not alone. There's many communities out there that are dealing with code of conduct issues, and we're doing our best to support them as they deal with their own code of conduct. So remember, the code of conduct that we have is a code of conduct that we have that is suitable for all communities. Some communities are going to want to have their own code of conduct that's going to work for them. You can amend your code of conduct. You can change your code of conduct. We advise you to reach out to some supports in the event that you want to make some significant changes. But it is a tool no different than your rules of procedure, that it is available to be amended at any time. We are going to take the lessons back from the communities that have been dealing with some of these issues, so that we can strengthen our language in our policies to enable you to do more. And that will be information that we'll share with everybody in the moment that we have it, and how we engage. You'll be reached out for sure. So I definitely hear you. I'm sorry that you had some issues there, but it's important that it's great that you shared those with everybody here, because we want everybody to take their time when we're dealing with this, and it's okay to defer. It's okay to take a pause and get some extra direction. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Yeah.
Under the legislation, newly elected councillors are required to do the code of conduct training within a 3-month period. We have a new councillor that was just elected in a by-election, and I would assume that there are other councillors that are going to be in a similar situation. What options are available to us for him to be able to complete the code of conduct training within the time frame that he's given to do so?
Right. So we're kind of talking about 2 different types of training, right? So there's the code of conduct training for within your own councillors and staff that you're going to have,
plus the orientation,
and then the orientation training, right? So we really want to make sure that we're separating those 2 things out, because people get confused, and a lot of people have gotten confused about how these sort of training things kind of happened at sort of one particular period of time. So, you know, your code of conduct training does not actually have to be a complicated, detailed experience. Maybe it's going to last an hour. Maybe it's going to last 2 hours. That's where your staff, right, you know, or a third party can come in and provide that training to that particular councillor or new staff member. So that's not meant to be an onerous issue, right? So, but what I would encourage everybody here, and if you haven't done, is to take some time and to have a bit of role play with your code of conduct, right? Challenge each other. What would happen if, right? How would you handle if this happened? If the mayor was involved and the CEO was involved, what would we do, right? How are we going to process that complaint? Are your timelines in your code of conduct, you know, suitable for your municipality? Because these are some of these things that you can amend. So there is time, lots of time to get it done, and reasonable amount of time for your town staff to be able to arrange that. If the problem would exist if the one individual is kind of refusing to sort of work with the town staff to get that done in place.
Yeah, there's not a problem with the town staff, with our fire department and so on. Yeah. We have councillors who have stepped forward to do that. Yeah. However, my understanding was that you need an approved program to be presented to councillors, elected councillors.
No, not at all. So, and again, that's the part of the bit of the confusion. So your code of conduct, some people have, some municipalities have taken our code and adopted it as your own, and that's fine. Yeah. That's your code. How you train your staff and your councils with that code is up to your town, right? So you don't need approval for us to see what your material is going to look like. For the orientation, if there was a third party doing the orientation training, yeah, we're going to need to see their training materials.
Well, Sandy provided virtual training for our municipality. So we can just do virtual training or the in-person training with the new councillor ourselves. Absolutely,
or your own staff members can do that as well, right? It's not meant to be an onerous task. It's just meant to say, hey, you're going to get a complaint at some point in time. Chances are, we want to make sure you're comfortable and you know how to handle it, right?
Okay. Thank you.
One last question? No last questions? We're done, I think.
Okay, thanks everybody. There's another session starting there pretty soon, so please stay around. Thanks everybody.